This Western family story will melt your heart. Mrs. Carter stood at the top of the small hill overlooking the winding road to where it disappeared into the distance, and sighs. Still no plume of trail dust which would indicate the return of her husband's wagon carrying all the provisions and foodstuff they would need to survive the onset of winter. Winter where they lived on the prairie was cold, the snow deep, and even though in her husband's absence she had tried to chop as much wood as possible, she knew it wasn't half enough. Her two sons, Matthew 12, Mark 10, tried their best in their father's absence to help their mother, but as in previous years their father was the force behind their safety and well-being. All this would have been accomplished if Joe was there. Joe was the type of man to whom their safety was a number one priority. He was always finding ways to entertain his wife and two sons. He was never afraid to hug and tell her how lucky he was to be blessed by her presence in his life. Then he would kiss her passionately. Their two sons had grown up used to this display of affection between both parents, but they would both grin sheepishly at each other. Then Dad turned his attention to them. "Come here!" he growled, advancing on them like a lion growling and baring his teeth. They ran outside laughing with him chasing them. From the vantage point where Jenna stood, she turned her head looking towards their home. It was a neat cabin, consisting of 3 bedrooms, a living room, kitchen, and a latrine, built away from the house, but her husband made sure there was a covered walkway to access it because it would be cold and the snow was deep. She smiled. He was a thoughtful man. She putted her sons to bed, a crease of worry on her brow. This was so unlike Joe. The 15-mile trip to town would usually take 2 days. Today was the 3rd day. That hole in the roof was one of the things bothering her, and the animals needed to be locked up in the barn because he saw wolf tracks a few days ago, and as the winter progresses they would prey on their livestocks. Mrs. Carter opened her eyes, unaware of what had caused her to wake up this abruptly. Her mind was clear and sharp. Nothing was out of place, everywhere had a normal sound and feel to it, but something was wrong. Taking up her pistol, the one her husband had taught her to use and which she wore everywhere, it slipped into her hand with an easy familiarity. Pulling the wrap around her, she pulled the entrance door open and stepped out into the porch and came face to face with a tall, lanky figure of a man. He was sleeping with both legs on the porch railing, his body tipped back in one of the chairs left on the porch. Joe's wagon was parked in the yard. His 2 horses were in the corral, eating fresh hay. Glancing back at the wagon, it was laden with all the provisions and everything Joe went to purchase. The cocking of her pistol woke the man up, but he didn't react in any way hasty. He just lifted up his hands away from his pistols, slowly lifting one hand carefully to his face, easing his Stetson up so his face could be seen. "Good morning, ma'am," he said politely. "My name is Clint Mason." Jenna felt a chill pass slowly down her spine. Hearing the commotion, her 2 sons joined her on the porch as the man stood up. To them it seemed as if his head would hit the porch ceiling. He was tall and muscular. He had the look of a man who knew hard work, but he also took care of himself. Over breakfast, after they had all determined that Clint was not a dishonest or a bad person, they offloaded the wagon. He told them what had transpired with her husband and their dad and the reason why he was with them. Jenna and her sons cried uncontrollably, tears rolling down their cheeks. Clint said he heard the sounds of gunfire. He spurred his horse, seeing 3 men attacking a wagon. He intervened, 2 got hurt, but together all 3 fled. But Joe was able to talk, pushing into his hands the list of provisions and materials his family desperately needed to survive the winter, giving him instructions, hastily knowing his time was short due to injury, then grasping his hands in desperation. "Tell them I'm always with them forever," he said, breathing his last. Jenna sat sewing a rip in Mark's pants. She stopped and looked out at the corral where her 3 men were leaning against the rail laughing. This man, who by chance foiled a robbery, tried to save her husband but ended up saving her family, had stayed by them. He worked tirelessly. The boys took to him like ducks to water, adopting him as their male guardian. He talked to them about their dad and how folks in town had referred to him as a gentleman. She loved him for the respect he showed Joe's name and to hers. Gradually they had fallen in love. When the boys were told, they were overjoyed. They shook his hands. After 4 years of being around each other, he treated them as men. Mark and Matthew sat astride their horses, looking across the winding road to where it disappeared into the distance, dressed in their Sunday best on their way to a church picnic. Looking back towards the cabin, Clint and their mom was sitting close together laughing on the porch, both happy. Mom had someone, not Dad, but she was happy. Together they galloped off into a world where love and fortune awaited. Moral of this story: be honest, trustworthy, and always be willing to give a helping hand to someone in need. If this message touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe for more inspiring family stories.